The Terran Fleet was the most powerful force in the galaxy. For years, it had ruled without challenge, its ships patrolling the stars and its warriors feared across every system. No one questioned their strength. The fleet was untouchable, a symbol of humanity's power. Even the most advanced alien fleets avoided confrontation, knowing the Terrans would crush them with ease. The humans had risen from a fractured, war-torn world to dominate the galaxy. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Their technology was unmatched, and their tactics flawless. Every military leader in the galaxy knew, crossing the Terrans was a death sentence. Fleet Command was stationed on the massive battlecruiser Titan, a vessel so large it could hold entire cities. The Titan was the heart of the Terran Fleet, where the most brilliant minds and fiercest soldiers gathered to ensure the fleet remained strong. They had one mission, to keep humanity's dominance unchallenged. But recently, something strange had started happening. Ships of the Terran Fleet had begun reporting odd signals, whispers in the darkness of space. At first, no one took it seriously. It was just another anomaly, a glitch in the system. But then the signals began to grow stronger, more frequent. Fleet commanders exchanged worried glances as they realized these signals weren't random. They were deliberate. One evening, as the Titan cruised through the deep reaches of the galaxy, a message appeared on every screen. It was short, but it sent chills down the spines of the officers who read it. The Empire will fall. The message was like a whisper in the dark, but it was enough to shake the very foundations of the Terran Fleet. Who could send such a message? Who dared threaten the mighty Terrans? Fleet Command immediately went on high alert. The message was analyzed, the signals traced, but no one could find the source. It was as if it had come from nowhere. The officers of the Titan gathered for an emergency meeting. General Kale, the commander of the fleet, stood at the head of the table. He was a tall, imposing figure, known for his ruthless strategies and sharp mind. He had led the fleet to victory countless times, and yet, this was different. "We have no enemies out here," General Kale said, his voice steady but tense. "No one has the capability to threaten us. This is just another bluff, a trick." But some of the officers weren't so sure. Lieutenant Rhea, a young officer with a reputation for her quick thinking, raised her voice. "Sir, with all due respect, we have to take this seriously. We've never received a message like this before. It could be a warning, a challenge. We cannot ignore it." The tension in the room was thick. Kale was used to having the final word, but Rhea's words made him pause. There was something unsettling about the message, something he couldn't explain. He knew the fleet was powerful, but there had always been whispers in the galaxy, rumors of enemies lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. He dismissed the meeting, but the unease lingered. For the first time in years, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something he couldn't control. Outside the Titan, the stars stretched out in endless darkness. But in the far reaches of the galaxy, hidden from all radar, something stirred. Something ancient. Something powerful. The Terran Fleet had ruled the galaxy for centuries, but even the greatest empires could fall. The days after the mysterious message seemed to drag on, but the uneasy feeling within the Terran Fleet only grew stronger. Fleet Command intensified their scans, trying to find any trace of the unknown enemy. But space was vast, and every scan returned with the same result: nothing. There was no sign of the threat. No ships. No weapons. Just the emptiness of the galaxy. General Kale, a man who had never known fear, found himself restless. He stood on the bridge of the Titan, staring out into the void, wondering if this was some kind of elaborate trap. It didn't make sense. No one could have built a fleet capable of taking on the Terran Empire. The Terrans had the largest and most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever seen. What could possibly threaten them? Lieutenant Rhea stood beside him, watching as the stars sped past the Titan. She knew Kale well enough to see the strain in his face, even if he didn't show it. He was a man of action, and this uncertainty was driving him mad. "General," Rhea began, breaking the silence. "Maybe we should expand our search. There could be something hiding in the outer sectors, something that's using cloaking technology." Kale shook his head. "We've already searched the outer sectors. If there's something out there, we'll find it." The message, he stopped, glancing at the comms officer, who was busy monitoring the system. "If it was from an enemy, why don't we know where they are?" The comms officer turned and spoke up. "Sir, I've been analyzing the data. The signal we received isn't like anything we've encountered before. It's not using any known communication method. It's unique." Kale turned to the officer, his frustration growing. "Explain." The officer cleared his throat. "The message is encoded in a way that bypasses our normal detection systems. It's almost as if it was designed specifically for us, something that we couldn't trace, no matter how hard we tried." Kale's eyes narrowed. "You're telling me someone out there is capable of hiding from us? Someone who knows our weaknesses?" Rhea nodded, her voice low. "It's possible. There are legends, old stories about an ancient race that could manipulate the fabric of space itself. Some say they've been hiding, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike." Kale let out a harsh laugh. "Ancient race? You believe in myths?" Rhea didn't answer, but Kale could see the doubt in her eyes. The universe was full of strange and unknown things. Maybe there was something to these stories after all. Just then, the alert sirens blared across the Titan. The comms officer's voice cut through the noise, urgent and strained. "Sir. We've detected something, massive, moving toward us." Kale's heart skipped a beat. "Show me." On the main screen, a vast shadow appeared. At first, it was just a speck on the radar, but it rapidly grew larger as it moved closer. The fleet scanners couldn't get a clear reading. It was as if the object was cloaked in some kind of energy field. It was impossible to tell what it was. Rhea's voice was barely a whisper. "It's coming too fast. We won't have time to react." Kale's mind raced. The fleet was the most powerful in the galaxy, but they had never encountered anything like this. He gave the order to prepare for battle, but deep down, he knew something was wrong. Something far beyond their control. The shadow on the screen grew clearer, and the true scale of the object began to take shape. It wasn't a ship. It was something far more ancient. Far more terrifying. It was a massive structure, an enormous ship of unimaginable size, its surface smooth and dark as though it had been forged from the very fabric of space. Its shape was like nothing the Terran Fleet had ever seen. It seemed to pulse with a strange, eerie energy. "This is no ordinary ship," Kale muttered. "We're dealing with something far worse than we imagined." And then, before they could react, the ship fired. A single beam of energy shot from its core, piercing the Titan's shields like they were nothing. The Titan shook violently as the force of the blast hit. Rhea gripped the railing, her voice shaking. "We're under attack." The Terran Fleet had always been untouchable, but now, for the first time in their history, they were facing an enemy they couldn't see. And worse, an enemy that had been waiting for this moment, for the moment when the Terran Fleet would finally fall. The attack on the Titan came faster than anyone could have predicted. The first blast had left a deep gash in the ship's hull, sparking fires and triggering emergency protocols. But the worst was yet to come. The enemy ship, now revealed in all its terrifying enormity, fired again. This time, the blast tore through the fleet's defensive line, sending several smaller ships into disarray. General Kale stood on the bridge, his face pale but steady. His mind was racing, trying to process the enormity of the situation. How had this unknown enemy found them so quickly? They had always relied on their technology to detect threats, but now, everything they knew about warfare was being shattered in real time. "Status report." Kale barked. The comms officer quickly replied, "The Titan's shields are down to 40%. We're taking heavy fire from the enemy ship. Several vessels have been hit. We're losing control of the outer fleet. Kale clenched his fists. They had never been in a fight like this before. The Terran fleet had crushed entire alien civilizations, yet here they were, struggling to even defend themselves against a single enemy ship. Lieutenant Rhea was scanning the enemy ship on her terminal, her face a mask of concentration. "General, this is unlike any technology we've ever encountered. It's as if their weapons bypass our shields entirely. I don't know how, but they're doing it." The ship on the screen continued to glow ominously, its massive form dominating the battlefield. It wasn't just a weapon of destruction, it seemed to pulse with dark energy, as though it was alive, feeding on the very fabric of space. Kale's instincts told him this wasn't a battle they could win with brute force alone. He needed answers. Fast. "Prepare all interceptors," Kale ordered. "We need to buy time for the rest of the fleet to regroup. Move the Titan out of the firing line." Rhea hesitated before speaking. "General, we don't even know who we're fighting. This could be a trap. If we move too far from the fleet, we'll be isolated." Kale's eyes burned with determination. "We don't have the luxury of time, Lieutenant. We're losing ships. We have to do something now." As Kale gave the orders to deploy the interceptors, his mind kept returning to one question: how had this enemy come out of nowhere? No one had ever seen ships like these before. And why had they chosen now to strike? It seemed too perfect, too coordinated. The galaxy was at peace, or so it seemed. There had been no reports of alien incursions, no warnings. They were blindsided, and that fact terrified Kale more than anything. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the Titan's interceptors launched, but they were quickly swatted away by the massive enemy ship's energy beams. The Terran ships, once considered invincible, were now little more than prey for this unknown force. The Terran fleet, in all its might, was crumbling before Kale's eyes. Rhea looked at Kale, her expression grim. "General, we need to rethink this. We can't keep sending our ships into this. There's no way we'll win with sheer numbers. We need to figure out what we're up against." Kale nodded, his jaw tightening. He turned to the comms officer. "Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them to pull back and regroup. We need to figure out a strategy. We can't fight blindly." As the message was sent, the reality of the situation set in. The Terran fleet, the unstoppable force that had conquered so many civilizations, was now facing an enemy it could not understand. Kale had built his career on decisive victories, but now, he was forced to make the hardest decision of his life: retreat. He had to save what was left of the fleet. But the enemy ship wasn't finished. With a flash of light, the massive vessel launched a shockwave that rippled through space. The blast hit the Titan directly, sending the ship into a dangerous spin. Kale struggled to maintain his footing as the bridge shook violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. "Brace for impact!" Kale shouted, but it was too late. The shockwave tore through the ship, and the Titan lurched forward, its systems failing one by one. In the chaos, Kale's mind raced. Was this the end? Had they truly underestimated the enemy to the point of no return? For the first time in his career, he felt a twinge of fear. Suddenly, a voice broke through the panic. "Sir!" "Incoming transmission," the comms officer cried. Kale's heart skipped a beat. They had already attempted to communicate with the enemy, but there had been no response. Who could be contacting them now? The screen flickered, and a figure appeared. The image was distorted, but the voice that followed was unmistakably calm, almost mocking. "General Kale, we've been watching you. You thought your fleet was invincible. It was a mistake to believe so." The message ended abruptly, leaving Kale staring at the screen, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The Terran fleet did something it had never done before. It retreated. Across the battlefield, damaged ships jumped into hyperspace one by one. Some escaped. Many did not. Explosions lit the darkness as entire squadrons vanished in fire. For the first time in history, the galaxy watched the Terran fleet run. Inside the Titan, chaos filled every corridor. Emergency lights glowed red. Engineers fought to keep the ship alive as systems failed again and again. The once proud flagship was wounded, bleeding power and losing control. General Kale stood silently on the bridge. His hands were steady, but his mind was not. He had commanded countless battles, but never a retreat. Never defeat. Every Terran officer had grown up believing the same truth: Terran ships do not fall. Yet they were falling now. Lieutenant Rhea moved between stations, helping where she could. She saw fear in the eyes of veteran soldiers, men and women who had crushed entire alien fleets without mercy. Now, those same warriors whispered prayers and clutched their consoles. "General," an officer said quietly, "we've lost contact with 4 carrier groups." Kale closed his eyes for a moment. 4 groups. Tens of thousands of lives. Gone. "Mark them as missing," he said. "We'll honor them later." Later. The word felt heavy. Kale wasn't sure there would be a later anymore. As the Titan limped through hyperspace, the enemy ship did not follow. That fact disturbed Kale more than anything else. If the enemy wanted them destroyed, they could have finished the job. Instead, they let the fleet escape. That meant only one thing. The enemy was confident. Hours later, the remaining Terran ships regrouped near a fortified star system. It was supposed to be safe. Multiple defense platforms. Planetary shields. Automated weapons strong enough to stop any known threat. But no one trusted safe anymore. Engineers worked non-stop. Ships were repaired with whatever parts remained. Medics filled every hall, treating the wounded. The Terran fleet still existed, but it was no longer whole. Rhea stood beside Kale, looking at a holographic map of the fleet. Large sections were missing. Empty spaces where power once ruled. "They didn't just attack us," she said softly. "They studied us." Kale nodded. "They knew where to hit. What to destroy first. They waited until we believed we couldn't lose." The words stung because they were true. A sudden alert echoed through the command deck. "Unknown transmission," the comms officer said, his voice shaking. "All channels. All frequencies." Kale felt his chest tighten. "Put it on screen." The image appeared, clear this time. A tall, thin figure stood in darkness. Its eyes glowed faintly, cold and ancient. Its voice was calm, slow, and certain. "You call yourselves Terrans," the being said. "You call your fleet untouchable." The image shifted. Stars burned behind the figure. Wreckage drifted through space, Terran wreckage. "You conquered young races. You silenced weaker worlds. You believed power made you eternal." The figure leaned forward. "We are older than your stars. We watched your species crawl from dust to fire. We allowed it." The bridge was silent. No one breathed. "You were never untouchable," the being continued. "You were simply permitted." The transmission ended. Fear spread like a sickness. Some officers shouted in anger. Others stared at the floor. The truth was unbearable. Humanity had not risen alone. It had been observed. Judged. Allowed. Kale straightened his posture. "They think we're finished," he said slowly. "They think we'll break." He looked around the bridge, meeting every terrified gaze. "But they've forgotten something." The officers turned toward him. "We are humans," Kale said. "And humans do not surrender when they fall." Outside, the damaged Terran fleet drifted in silence. Broken, shaken, and bleeding. But not dead. And somewhere in the dark, the enemy waited, unaware that the most dangerous phase of humanity had just begun. The galaxy believed the Terran fleet was finished. News of the defeat spread fast. Alien worlds that once bowed in fear now whispered in relief. Old enemies celebrated quietly. Neutral systems prepared for a new age, one without human dominance. The ancient enemy had spoken, and the galaxy believed them. Humans were permitted. Humans were controlled. Humans were over. But the galaxy did not understand one thing. Humans did not evolve to survive because they were strong. They survived because they adapted. Inside a hidden system far from known space, the remaining Terran commanders gathered. No grand halls. No shining banners. Just steel walls, dim lights, and tired faces. The proud empire was gone. What remained was something far more dangerous. General Kale stood before them. He looked older now. Harder. The man who once ruled through confidence now spoke with calm clarity. They think they broke us, Kale said. They think fear will keep us quiet. No one interrupted him. They watched us rise. They studied our fleets. They learned our patterns. Kale paused. But they never learned our minds. Rhea stepped forward. We've reviewed every battle. Every loss. Their ships are powerful, but predictable. They rely on control. On fear. On us acting the same way we always have. Kale nodded. So we won't. The new plan was simple. And terrifying. No massive fleets. No perfect formations. No pride. Humanity would fight like it did in its earliest wars, small groups, chaos, sacrifice, and surprise. Terran engineers worked day and night. Old weapons were rebuilt. Experimental drives were installed. Ships were stripped down, made faster, quieter, deadlier. They stopped building symbols of power and started building tools of survival. For the first time in centuries, humans stopped trying to look unstoppable. They chose to be dangerous instead. The enemy noticed too late. The first strike came without warning. A Terran strike group appeared inside an enemy-controlled system, somehow bypassing their detection. No grand attack. No message. Just silence. Then the stars exploded. Human ships targeted energy cores, not shields. They overloaded systems instead of fighting head-on. When the enemy responded, the Terrans were already gone. The attacks continued. Everywhere. Nowhere. Enemy fleets turned to defend their territory, but there was nothing to fight. Humans did not hold ground. They burned it and vanished. Panic spread among the ancient enemy. They are not following patterns, one enemy commander said. They should not be able to do this. But humans never fought to be perfect. They fought to win. The final battle came at the heart of the enemy's command system. The same massive ship that once shattered the Titan now waited, confident in its power. The Terrans arrived with fewer ships than ever before. Kale's voice echoed through the fleet. No retreat today. Rhea smiled slightly. They won't expect this. Human ships charged, not in formation, but in chaos. Some ships rammed enemy weapons. Others detonated near critical systems. Humans paid the price willingly. And it worked. The ancient ship began to fail. Its perfect systems could not adapt fast enough. For the first time in its long existence, it lost control. Kale watched as the enemy ship broke apart, consumed by its own energy. The battle ended in silence. The galaxy watched again, but this time, in shock. Humanity had fallen. Humanity had bled. And humanity had learned. The ancient enemy vanished into legend, broken by the species it once allowed to live. From that day on, the galaxy never again called humans untouchable. They called them something far worse. Unpredictable.